Great. Welcome back to Senate Education, Friday, January 19th. Our last bit of business today is an interesting one, higher education incentivization in Vermont. We have Jay Jacobs, correct, and Katie Mobley, welcome, and Maurice Ouimet.
Correct.
Ouimet?
You got it. Thank
you. Bienvenue. Very excited to have all of you here. And we'll just go around the table so you all know who you're talking to. We'll start with Vice Chair.
Hi, Senator Martina Rock-Buick. I live in Burlington and represent Chittenden Central.
Go to the clerk.
Terry Williams, from Rump County and from Pompey.
Ranking member.
Oh, yeah.
I'll promote you.
Dave Weeds, Rutland County.
And Brian Campion, Bennington County. So the floor is yours, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Great. Well, thanks for having us. As you said, my name is Jay Jacobs. I use he, him pronouns, Vice Provost for Enrollment Management at the University of Vermont.
And I'm Katie Mobley. I'm the Dean of Enrollment at the Community College of Vermont.
And Maurice Ouimet, Vice President for Admissions and Enrollment Services for Vermont State University.
Katie, Maurice, and I wanted to come and talk to you all about our collaboration as the three public institutions of higher education in the state in tackling what we perceive to be one of the largest problems we're seeing in the state, which is the college going rate amongst our high school graduates. We sent along a PowerPoint. Not sure if you were able to see it or have it in front of you.
We have it right here in our folders, middle folder. And if you don't mind, we'll also bring it up on the screen.
I don't mind.
And Martinez is the one that has the.
Okay. I like to rifle through lots of papers.
That's it.
I can also pull it up on my screen, but are we gonna pull it up on the big screen?
We're gonna pull it up to the big screen so everybody can have a look.
Love this color palette. On a Friday, you need the bright colors.
Yes, John.
Thank you. This is great.
Maurice asked me to tone down the UVM branding, but I didn't tone down the UVM colors.
Nicely done.
to be
We're all
fully transparent.
We're all great now.
All right, so if you want to scroll to the next slide, thanks. So we wanted to first just level set everybody on the challenges that we are facing as the higher education industry of the state. You've likely heard about the quote unquote demographic cliff and the declining numbers of college eligible students. So the graphic on the top was both graphics actually were taken from the New England Secondary School Consortium's recent report that talked about the total number of high school graduates has been declining over the past 4 years by 2%. In 2021, the state of Vermont had just over 5,700 total high school graduates. And the high school graduation rate has also declined by 2% over the last period. In fact, on the bottom graphic in the bottom right corner, you can see that Vermont actually has the lowest high school graduation rate in New England, just over 83%. If you move to the next slide, this is simply showing that the end is not in sight with the demographic cliff, which the Western Institutions of Commission for Higher Education projects that the number of high school graduates within the state of Vermont will actually continue to drop by 17% between now and the academic year of 2036-37. Most of this drop comes from our public school graduates, with over 1,000 of those students dropping off of the cliff. And what these data don't show is a potential second cliff due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the lessening birth rates during the pandemic. The demographic cliffs are scary, but moving to the next slide, I think this is what Maurice, Katie, and I believe is actually the most pressing problem that we see in the state, which is our college going rates of those college eligible high school graduates. In fact, we have the lowest college going rate in all of New England, and among the bottom 8 college going rates throughout the country. In 2021, again, according to the New England Secondary School Consortium, just under half of our students who graduated from high school decided to enroll in college in 2021. And on the right is data from IPEDS, the National Education Clearinghouse, shows about 55% of the class of 2020 enrolled in college. Moving to the next slide, just to kind of segment these changes out a little bit. You can see between 2019 and 2021, four-year public institutions in the state dropped enrollment by just over 4% between those 2 years. The national average was 3%. You all know very well what Maurice and Vermont State has been going through. I'm sure you've read what the University of Vermont has been going through over the past few years. And moving to slide 6, is the same data from 2019 to 2021. Two-year public institutions in the state actually is a different story. We've seen an increase of somewhere between 3 and 4% in two-year college enrollment in the state. One of only 5 states in the union to see a positive growth in 2-year. And from what Katie tells me, 2022 and 2023 were actually better than this 4%. Good news. Unfortunately, however, it doesn't seem like the college going rate decline is has an end in sight either. Moving to the next slide, these are data that just came from a most recent VSAC report that's showing the college aspiration of Vermonters are continuing to drop. The aspiration gap is actually led by male identifying students and students who are first in their family to attend college or first generation students. You can see those figures in the top right, segmented out by gender and parents' educational attainment. You know, we all read often, 3 of us read often, the perceived value of higher education on the decline. And you can see that parents are emphasizing college less in the bottom right graphic there. And trending long-term, moving to slide 8, this is really bad news for the state economy, right? Georgetown's Center for Education and Workforce is projecting that by 2031, over half, 51% of the jobs forecasted to be in Vermont at that time will require at least a degree. And an additional 17% will require at least some college, bringing the total number of jobs in the state in 2031 requiring at least some college to over 68%. All right, and then we wanted to dig in to understand actually where are Vermonters going to college. We decided to use 2020 data. This is the most complete, the most recent data set that we have available to us using the national database, IPEDS. In 2020, there were 5,770 students enrolled in high school in Vermont. 83% of them graduated from high school. That brings us to just under 4,800. And just under half of them enrolled in college, bringing us to just under 2,350 students enrolling in college. And about just under 70% of them went to college in state. You can see on the right graphic where those students went that year. That means 38 students attended college outside of Vermont. And if you dig into the data even deeper, you can find that those students are enrolling in private institutions, mostly throughout New England and New York State. So, moving to slide 10, this is the reason we're here. We wanted to show you all how we are starting to collaborate in an early way to tackle the college going rate. Over the past few months, we have had the opportunity to talk to many of our colleagues on the K-12 side and school counselors. We were accepted to have a panel session at the Vermont School Counselor Association conference that included the 3 of us and a colleague from VSAC down in Killington in November. And we had a great conversation with probably 30 to 40 counselors there, discussing where students are going, why students are going to college, and most importantly, why students are not going to college, which we'll dive into here on the next slide. We had a similar conversation at the University of Vermont's campus with my admissions team's Vermont School Counselor Advisory Board. We are and have been, but continue to be working on pathway and articulation agreements between the institutions. So UVM and CCV have over 30 2+2 pathways where students can get their associate's degree at CCV, seamlessly transfer to obtain their bachelor's degree at the University of Vermont and graduate in 4 years. We have similar pathway agreements with Vermont State, Vermont State. They were with VTC, and we're grateful for Maurice and his leadership in making sure that those articulation pathways agreements stood in the status quo with the merger with the state colleges, the 4-year state colleges. And of course, CCV and Vermont State have those pathway agreements. And we want to continue to look at what agreements might look like from the 4-year programs at Vermont State into graduate programs at the University of Vermont. And then finally, and lastly, Katie's team of advisors at CCV meet regularly with the admissions teams and the registrar teams at Vermont State and the University of Vermont in order so that the advisors have the knowledge that they need to help pass down to students for student-centered pathways, transfer pathways, not necessarily just the articulation agreements, but the more traditional transfer pathways between institutions as well. And then finally and lastly, we wanted to showcase what we have heard from these past few months of collaborating together on why Vermonters are going and or not going to college. And we found that there were really 2 main reasons that bubbled up to the top for both. And they're actually very similar. The reasons that students go to college are because they have that expectation from their parents or their caregivers, and they know that going to college will provide a sound financial future for them and their families. On the flip side, students are not going to college for similar reasons, but opposite side of the coin, right? They don't believe in their ability to do college level work, or they don't believe that college is available. So this is the question that we've been asking ourselves. How can we, the royal we, collectively between the institutions of public higher education in the state, VSAC, you all of the state government, the secondary education counselors and the teachers, fix this college going rate problem? So we wanted to think about things to address confidence levels and the ability for students to see themselves on their campus, be that through direct admissions programs, for example. We just saw New York State announce theirs just last week. The state of Texas has done this for years and years and years. We're the top 10%.
Can you explain direct?
Yep. We're the top 10% of in the state of Texas and the state of New York, the top 10% of high school graduates are automatically admitted to their state's flagship.
Financial issues irregardless.
I believe so, yes.
If family can pay, there's still state still paying.
No. This is just an admission offer. I think the financial aid is a separate process. But we know in New York, for example, students can go to community colleges for free, or Maine, they can go to community colleges for free, things like that. Do we require high school students in order to graduate from high school to fill out the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid? We've seen other states do this. We've seen their FAFSA submissions go up dramatically.
Sorry, is this a recommendation?
It's not necessarily a recommendation. It's something that we have been collectively thinking about potentially recommending to the state in the future. Or other programs that instill confidence, right? How can we make sure that students are on our campuses, engaging with our faculty, with our students, and feeling and seeing themselves being successful on our campuses before they even move?
So you said that New York did this?
Yes.
And how long ago did they do this?
A week, 2 weeks ago.
Okay. All right. So, next question was, did they see a bump in
Texas has done it since the 70s.
Yeah,
do they have a history of a bump? They showed kind of before, then offering these, 10%?
They, I think Texas's issues were a little bit different than ours in Vermont. They saw a bump in BIPOC students attending colleges.
There's a lot of data out there to support that, just removing enrollment barriers certainly increase the point rate.
Here, except, there you go. You got that.
The anxiety around the process, right?
So there's no application, you graduate within the top 10%, and you just give a letter or whatever. Like,
Right. There's no gathering letters of recommendation, taking tests, making sure your high school transcript is in.
Senator,
So this isn't something you need legislation to, right? This is something you could do.
No, because we would need coordination, well, I don't want to say
Right,
for you, but
coordination is one thing.
from the agency event. So think about like the data sharing that happens in Vermont. K-12 data is held very separate from higher ed. So we don't have the ability to say to you of the 5,700 students that we know who they are or could reach out to them. So there'd have to be, it would need to be from legislation, I believe. I don't know if you think differently.
No, I agree with you. It's a
Yeah.
disconnect.
so it really could confuse it like that.
Disconnect.
I mean, really, again, it's because the agency of education, those grades are very private, they're.
Yeah.
Once the agency identifies the top 10% of each school or has them reported, those students would get a letter.
And we could even potentially expand that, right? That's coming from,
Right.
UVM's perspective.
Right. I want the rest of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I
even,
do. Yeah.
even UVM, the top 10% is probably too small of a
Yeah.
cut. I don't know what the right cut would be, top
Yeah.
30%, 50%. I mean, we admit Vermonters at a 70% rate
Right.
at the University of Vermont.
Well, so what does that mean? Sorry, Senator Field,
No, you
please.
go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
So how does that change in terms of out of state with regard to standards? Are you saying, for example, a B- kid might get into University of Vermont from Vermont, but a B- kid out, from California might not? Is that, or you just have an eye, you're a little more generous, a little more liberal, a little more understanding
Yeah.
in the interest of serving Vermont?
Yeah, in our holistic admissions process, we want to make sure that we're serving our land grant mission by
Right.
ensuring a critical mass of Vermonters in each class.
Great, Senator Buell.
Yes, I just wanted to ask about the demographic clip, which I believe is not unique to Vermont. I believe this is like the countrywide, maybe even worldwide, and minus a robust immigration system, I don't see it going away. Is there talk at federal level to like what the future is gonna look like? I wish there were like a plan, because it seems as though we're not gonna be able to fill all of our schools as time continues on. Again, minus a robust immigration plan, but which we don't seem to have either. So there's no plan, okay?
No, short of, I mean, this is a small step, but going back towards those enrollment barriers, the changes that have been recently made to the FAFSA, right?
Yeah.
So they called the FAFSA simplification process, so
Yeah.
that was something that some families would just hear and they couldn't even deal with it. I mean, thank goodness we have VSAC in our state and they provide the services that they do, but, that this is a step from the feds at least, in trying to make the process a little simpler.
Yeah, and I really appreciate what you're doing. I was a first generation college student and it was, the whole thing was so shrouded in mystery
Mhm.
that it was very scary.
Mhm.
And I see it in where I live with, first gen and also new Americans. I mean, it is just terrifying. And even once they get there, I think I wasn't very supported. I mean, back to the old days anyway. And I think to this day, it's really difficult for students. So I appreciate any like demystifying you can do and like you say, just improving confidence
Yeah.
because so many kids have the potential.
Yeah.
I think
Sometimes
that's
it's
why.
just getting kids on your campus.
Totally,
I've been at Bennington College forever, and it's always surprising to me the number of local kids that haven't been on the
Sure, and
college
just
campus.
yeah. I mean, I would say, Martine, dual enrollment is a huge part of this, so getting students to have an early experience where they have that confidence. And then I jokingly said this in-house, but I'll say it again, and then the open end of the funnel is CCD. So having students start in a less expensive, more flexible environment where then there's collaboration for someone to go on. So the risk isn't as big, but we do a lot.
I think too, we talked about this in house too, but the idea of students entering the workforce shouldn't be discouraged necessarily either, because there's the pairing of they can continue with higher education while they're working with their employer. Oftentimes, they're getting assistance from their employer. It makes it a lot more affordable. They're not biting it all off and at one time, and they're kind of wading into the water. So, there's this stigma that's out there about, oh, well, I'm not gonna go to college because my parents, don't support me, or no one in my town goes to college. I'm just gonna stay here and I'm gonna go to work. Well, you can do both, and trying to change the narrative around that. And I think as a system, we're doing that very well with the focus on workforce development, but that seems to be targeted more at, 30 somethings and then maybe 40 somethings. And how do we get those students that are coming out of our high schools that are just doing nothing right now? How do we engage with them to show them focus opportunities?
Making it the easy choice, right? Like, I think that's sort of the theme.
Right, and I would just also say, just trying to eliminate the barriers.
Yeah.
I think we don't have enough guidance counselors to help every kid, and a lot of kids need help, whether it's, filling out the application, filling out the FAFSA. Just the whole, the money is scary too,
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
like bringing up all this scary stuff, but.
We've thought
yeah.
about collaborating
Yeah.
in the fall on, application days where our admissions teams can bleed out into the high schools to help students apply to college.
Yeah.
Not the University of Vermont, not Vermont, just apply to college.
I love it.
Or, Katie brought up in the house, what I love the term they
Yeah.
use, predictive affordability, right?
Yes.
So the 802 opportunity grant is a great example of that, was students from families making $75,000 or less being able to attend CCB without tuition.
Yeah.
We've replicated that at the University of Vermont with our institutional funds in the UVM Promise. Maurice has done a similar one at Vermont State. How can the 802 opportunity grant be scaled up to include 4-year institutions?
Yeah, that's something that we didn't really dig into too much the last session, but I think that's a challenge. As a legislature, it's a challenge, right? Because you're working 1 year at a time and funds are available 1 year at a time. But, the critical occupations scholarship program, we were incredibly grateful for that money. It helped so many students, but to Katie's point, it's hard to predict that, right? So
Right.
the legislative process, so that the bill is approved late in the session.
Yeah.
A lot of students are already made the decisions by then, right? It's hard, how do we get multi-year planning out there?
Yeah.
To do this, it's a challenge, right? But-
Senator Williams.
How about incorporating some technical, like a technical college? I know, I couldn't get into Castleton or UVM when I got out of high school, so I went to New Hampshire for one of the VOTECs up there. And got skilled.
Yep.
And when I got out, I got drafted. But, and I actually got my bachelor's degree while I was in the Army.
That's
So there's no carrot and a stick either.
Right.
Because if they can go out into the workforce, McDonald's is paying $18 an hour.
Right, sure.
So, and they're saying, hey, I can go make this much money and I don't have to go to college.
Yeah. I mean, we talk a lot about, I think Moody's year after age is 27. So often we see students after they've worked at McDonald's for
Yeah.
5 years and they're like, okay, this is
Yeah.
not where I want to be,
Yeah.
right? So I think that open end of the funnel being available for students, but we did talk a lot about the role of, I don't think, well, I'll speak for myself. I don't think CCV feels like college has to be for everyone, but we want it to be available for everyone. Like, you don't have to make that choice, but right now in Vermont, too many students are not even considering that choice, right? So we've got to flip the narrative, I think, in that way, and then work with students and adults sort of throughout that progression.
How about the Randolph?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, there's a post-secondary opportunity for every Vermonter right here,
Yeah,
right? Whether it's a certificate program or an apprenticeship program like you're describing, that were offered through the legacy VTC programs.
yeah,
To a certificate program, to, a pathway to a nursing degree through
Right.
CCV, to all the way to a doctoral degree at UVM, right? There's
Yeah.
something for every Vermonter here, and that's why I think it's, the fact that we can present as the public face of higher education in Vermont is really gonna help people see that, anybody can come, right? Everybody should be able to come.
Senator Fox.
Yeah, I've got one observation and two questions. First observation is the slide that's, I think it's figure 6. What students report their parents feel would also be interesting to find out what parents feel about what their uh, children should be doing. Because, the first comment, the whatever,
Yeah.
yeah, that sounds like a student response and, I'm not quite sure that's, parents are a little laissez-faire these days, but, what they really feel about what their children should be doing, I think would be more interesting than what the kids. The first question is, so on the slide about the bad news for the Vermont economy, so 68% of all forecasted jobs require, I see that as also a positive. So that means that there's 32% who could be heading towards CTE. And we're all, in this committee, I think we're all very strong CTE supporters.
Yeah.
I see that as an opportunity, not as a detractor. It all depends on the spin. So to your point about, what Randolph's doing, what Randolph offers, or what, more technically oriented, I'm not talking about engineering, I'm talking about, the trades. There's an opportunity there. And I
We
don't
need to do a
think
better job of that. We
Yeah,
we need to do a better.
Well, that leads me to the second question. That's, where are Vermonters going? I'm not sure. I see the data, but I'm not sure if you've done the analysis of why. What's causing the Vermonters not to, to maybe look at universities outside Vermont, and obviously they're not looking at the private universities inside Vermont, that we identified here. So, what's the limitation? Is it,
Affordability.
marketing budget?
They're getting better deals outside of the
It's
two.
better deals.
Private
Okay, that's the
Absolutely.
takeaway that's really important here.
Yeah.
Is why they're not.
It's more affordable for many students to go to college outside of Vermont than it is.
But we have, we won't use names, so we even know folks that wanted to go to UVM, but it was just, they got the bigger bucks at other institutions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us just a little something about what kinds of jobs you're referring to when you have 51% of the jobs forecast to be, what do those jobs look like in 2030? Do you guys have any sense?
I don't know.
Okay, this is the Georgetown info.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
the data I just pulled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tech and medical.
Yeah.
Healthcare.
Yeah.
Senator.
I like your point about the guidance, system in the high schools. Because my personal experience at 16 decided I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to learn a trade. I wanted to go to a Stafford Tech, and they said, no, you're in a college track, you're not gonna. So maybe a little flexibility in the guidance, to actually not tell them what they're gonna do, but ask them what they want.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're addressing that with the funding model, right, with career and tech ed. I mean, that's part of the challenge, I think. Yeah.
The efforts that are being made with VSAC and all of us to get into middle schools too, because so many students in high school don't even know what some of these programs are. They don't know the career pathways, right? So they're being asked to select something on a form and they don't even know what they're selecting. I'll select business because that's what I should do, or I'll select law, pre-law, I mean, they don't know what a mechanical engineering technology degree is.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you'll be doing a lot more like pushing in rather than waiting for them to come to you. Wonderful, super, that's the way to go.
Yeah. Senator Weeks.
Well, I don't know, kind of in summary, what are your asks? What do you, was this like purely informational, or did you have like a
Yeah,
short list of?
no asks, no recommendations yet. We wanted to come to you all today to talk through, to make sure that you understood the challenges that we're facing, make sure you understood that we are collaborating and coming up with these ideas for potential recommendations.
So the University of Vermont State Colleges and CCB had no requests to the legislature this year whatsoever.
not these three.
I defer to Andy.
You thought we would do that for Drake.
Right, you don't have choice in watching.
Right.
What's that? I'm sure Joyce Judy is.
Right, that's right.
You wanna have to come in?
If we didn't have asks, I wouldn't have a job.
Right, this is very interesting, and I think, guessing committee would be very interested if you all would support it to sort of dig into some of the things that New York and Texas.
Yes. It's not an ask, but I do think
Yeah.
that collaboration, data sharing with our K-12 and higher ed is something. CCB's been participating in a Gates funded initiative this year called Accelerate Ed. It's been amazing, connected to the Free Degree Promise from the McClure Foundation. And over again, the theme that comes up is states that have a cohesive model have data sharing across the model. The gap is after year 12. And I totally understand what you were saying before about privacy, and there are lawyers who are better tasked to
Sure.
think about that. But it is, I think it's a real challenge in Vermont. And I think for us to dip in the way that you said, Martine, it would be helpful to have some more of a bridge there. And so that's a little vague, but I think there's
Yeah, in
policy.
the old days, once
implications.
SATs were taken,
Yeah,
you would start to get notes and letters, and I don't know if that's still
we don't
happening.
do that. I'm sure you do by lists and, yeah.
We get the
Yeah.
document,
They do.
fewer
Yeah.
take tests.
Okay, yeah,
Got one more dimension to it
Please.
too, and I heard from, on the National Guard PA caucus. The adjutant general said we can't get into the high schools to try and enlist soldiers. And, you know, if we could keep them, if we can get them, if they wanna go in the military, get them in the guard and let them come back to the state and then go to college. right?
Yeah,
Because the guards has a pretty good.
we run classes at the Guard.
I know.
I mean, they're
I know.
great. They do
Yeah.
a great job at that.
And they, you know,
Yeah.
they learn a skill, I don't
Yeah.
care, you know, what you think about the military, but we gotta figure some way to keep our people
are
here.
you saying they can't recruit in high school?
They're only allowed into that school by law, one day a year. And they're competing with the active component recruiters.
Is that a federal policy? That's our.
Well, it's, I think what I experienced, cause I was involved in, recruiting for the National Guard when I was in. They, counselors, guidance counselors didn't want you talking to their kids, cause they already had a career track in mind.
Senator Weeks?
So I'm just curious here, who initiated the three of you coming together? Was it our illustrious chairman? Or was it you three guys contacted?
Katie took the credit in the house. We'll
I
give her the
did.
credit.
No, I
Someone
mean,
said, well, how did you start working together? And I said, I take credit. You guys have a PowerPoint. I'm gonna bring words
No,
together.
encouraged.
Wendy.
That's very encouraging.
It
It is.
That's
I
good.
think we're all in this
Yeah,
together.
I think we want all of you to, like, we are working closely together and we want Vermonters to know there are options for them. And we need your help
And
with
some great
changing the narrative in Vermont around higher ed. It's problematic. I think we historically have sort of said, oh, well, at least, again, I'll speak for CCB. We want students to make whatever choice they want and know they have options. Students are not choosing to pursue they don't know they have the option. And I think broadly, higher ed is under a lot of scrutiny and attack. So it's we've got sort of a tricky environment to be working within. And I think we want all Vermonters to know there is a place for them to go to higher ed.
Yeah.
And we're gonna keep working on it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, very silos, so.
I know we're running out of time, but what, just to clarify what you would like from us, it sounds like there would be an ask of the AOE to share data with our institutions of higher ed. Is that correct?
I look to you, Paul, and you might not be there yet. You might want to think about this and.
Yeah, I don't think we're
ask.
ready for a specific ask or recommendation.
Yeah.
You can see, we're so used
But
to
you're
having
thinking
people
about it.
ask us.
Yeah.
Especially on Friday.
That's what I was like.
No, no
Oh,
action
is that
items
just
today.
come for an
That's
Friday
We
afternoon?
come before lunch with our asks.
Thrown it.
Come with lunch.
I
Just a second, folks.
I just wanna add
Yes,
that
please.
one thing that was mentioned in the last committee is that, you know, this is not something that we're asking for at the moment. But expanding 802 opportunity to four-year public institutions would be a real help with this. And so that's something that we may come back in the future after more research is done to recommend. this is a tough year for money. We know that.
Yes.
So, but it's planting the seed of thinking about that in the future.
And like Senator Weeks said, I think I know we all feel the same way. We really appreciate the initiative. You know, coming together on your own, thinking about this.
Yeah.
The best interest of Vermonters. Closing comments? Good.
Are you guys gonna race back to Rutland County? You're gonna.
Need him to be safe.
He's gonna get out of the gate first, and I gotta go back.
Thank you all.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. Great, Wendy. Thanks.
Wendy.
Okay, committee, thanks for a great week, really super week. We've got a busy week next week, Morgan's finishing the agenda, it's probably already up or looking soon, it'll be there quick throughout the evening to see what we're up to.
I think the one with the biggest takeaway.
From this,
Yeah, no, from the week,
oh, yeah,
let's do it for
yeah, good work on this. We will
Great
work.
numbers.
it.
That's your literacy bill.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Am I still on?
you're still on.
but I think, yeah, I think we're done, Morgan. Yeah, are we feeling
Yeah,
good?
yeah.
Yeah, feeling good, please. Thanks again, really appreciate everybody's time.